Hey everyone. So this evening I'm going to be joined by a Reiki Master. Her name is Lisa, and yeah, she's going to be telling me a bit about Reiki, and I think that she works with a specific style, which I may not be familiar with. Hey Joe. So yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into Reiki, the ins and outs of Reiki. I think it might be a Atlantean Reiki, or I think that was what it was called, and some other energy works and energy healings. So she should be joining in a few minutes. So you guys are welcome to hang about and listen to the chat. Oh, here we go. Here is Lisa now. It looks like I'm pressing all the right buttons, but a little bit slow to look. Yeah. Letting the hair grow its thing. Well, keeping the sides trim, probably what it wants. So let's do it. Three, Lisa will be in just a moment. I think it's my connection, maybe. So Lisa, okay, it says you're unable to join. So if I were to um, cancel your request, and if you re-request, please, or actually invite me directly, maybe that'd be better. I wonder if you can see that invitation. So, oh yeah, something's happening.
Yeah, it looks like we're live.
Yeah, cool. So all I can see is myself, actually, but I can hear you.
I can hear you too. It's a strange Instagram glitch, I think, here in because I'm in Canada.
Yeah.
I find a lot of times when I go on live with people that I end up only being able to hear them. So
Okay. All right. So yeah, it looks like that's what's happening today. But that's all good. It's all good. I'm sure we can still make it interesting.
all
How are
right.
you doing anyway?
I am doing really well. This full moon today, man, I tell you, I woke up feeling like I could take on the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool. That's cool. I just come back from my friend actually. She's got a gong bath this evening, and she was saying, she does a gong bath every full moon, and she was saying something about the astrology, saying it's meant to be really strong, powerful one tonight.
Very, yes, very much. And myself, like from the name, from my account name, Moon over Pisces, I'm sure you can tell I have some Pisces placements in my chart, but sometimes when the Leo energy, because it's a Leo full moon, it just really lights that fire inside and really makes you want to just do all the things.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe it's a good day for the conversation then.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. So I was saying, I mean, you'll be able to explain much better than me. So yeah, would you be happy to maybe express your maybe your title? I believe is a Reiki Master, and maybe just explain briefly what Reiki is, just the surface level to begin, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's great to meet you. So Reiki quite literally breaks down to Reiki, universal life force. So essentially, a practitioner is, channeling the universal source energy and sharing that with clients, and even with themselves, because first and foremost, as practitioners, when we are working in this field, we need to work on ourselves first and then take that work out into the world to help others, heal, to help them, reconnect back into themselves, back into their heart space. And that's in a nutshell, the basis of what Reiki is. And then expounding on that, there's so many different forms.
Yeah, yeah. And so I get that. So it's the channeling of the universal life force, and
Yeah.
Reiki is of Japanese language, is that?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and I guess the chi, would that be like Chinese version would be chi maybe, or is that the
Yes.
same sort of
Yeah.
chi from like Qigong?
Yes.
Is it? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, cool. And then you say there are many, many forms. And yeah, can you tell us about the method or form or style of Reiki that you work with?
For sure. So I've been in this space about 15 years, and my very first Usui Reiki Master I received back in 2009. So that is the traditional Reiki that we think of when we think of Reiki. We think of Mikao Usui, and I'm sitting underneath the tree and downloading these symbols and signs and hand placements to use when we work with the universal energy.
Oh, so
And
that's the origin.
yeah,
Sorry to cut you off. This is very interesting. So the origin. Do you know the maybe the century or the year when this guy channeled
yeah.
the?
My understanding is this was somewhere in the early 20th century. Um, like I want to say, 1910, somewhere in there, 1920. So yeah, it's actually quite
Mm,
modern, believe
yeah.
it or not.
Mm,
And the teachings, I believe, were brought over in the 30s by Mrs. Tanaka was her name. She was a woman who emigrated to the Western world and brought those teachings over. And I do understand from my learning that she was a very strict taskmaster.
yeah.
You had to do things a very certain way. And so when we learn it in the initial stages, it's very strict. It's very much follow the hand placements, follow the symbols, follow the protocols exactly. But as we're evolving, as we're moving through this, what we're calling ascension, consciousness expansion, I really like to think of it more like that. We are finding that we can play with this energy in a whole bunch of new ways. So this is where these other forms come in. So for myself, I practiced Usui Reiki for about 10 years before I stepped into some other ones. What I found was with Usui Reiki, it's really great for the mind and it's really great for the physical body. It helps kind of that very first layer of the energy body, the emotional body, and helps you to start getting in touch with that. And I find if you look at things from a dimensional perspective, that it tends to kind of work in the lower levels of the what we would call the fourth dimension. So it's just that beginning space where we begin to open up the psychic and spiritual abilities. And then from there, we can play around with other things. So for myself, I actually learned a modality called Atlantean Reiki. And what this does is this connects back into the energy of Atlantis, the energy of the Lemurians, and it tends to be very galactic, for lack of a better word. It helps us kind of tap into more of the Akashic records, or some practitioners are actually working now back in what we call the halls of Amenti, which is a galactic version of the
I know of
Akashic
the halls
records.
of Amenti.
Pardon me?
Yeah, yes, yes. Okay. I know of the halls of Amenti through reading some Hermetic scriptures and the what is it,
The
the
Emerald
book of
Tablet.
the Emerald Tablets,
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm not too familiar with some of the other. There's so much information coming through that I don't quite grasp yet. For example, a so Atlantis and the Lemurians. Atlantis, essentially the correct me, but I think a lost city underwater, so, to a flood, to a great flood, maybe.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
There was a flood. Yeah.
yeah, and would Lemurians be the race that inhabit that land?
Yes and no. They were
Okay.
two separate, they were kind of two separate places essentially. And it's my understanding they both had very spiritual lives, and they had very different ways of doing that. Where the Atlanteans were more of the mindset that spiritual enlightenment came through physical means, through mindfulness and mastering presence in the moment. The Lemurians, on the other hand, they were more about mastering the spiritual aspects, the crown, and connecting to source through that. And not saying that either one of them was wrong, but what we're finding now is it's actually more of a combination of bringing those two aspects together, of understanding the physical can relate to the metaphysical, and we can live those two lives, together. We don't have to separate them anymore.
Yes. Okay. 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 And were the so sorry, going back to the Lemurians and the Atlanteans, they coexisted in a similar sort of timeline, or time, actual time and space, like a similar
It's
century
yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
or
Yeah, it's my understanding that they were here around the same time,
yeah.
and there was actually a conflict with the way they were living to each other that caused their downfall. I don't have all the specifics because
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people who reads about all this stuff, because I find that kind of taints what I channel. So
Okay.
I
Yeah.
do have a tendency to just rely on the information that my guides share with me in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is where you so in theory, the style, this Atlantean style you've been using, well, certainly predates the sort of traditional Japanese teachings.
It does. It
Mm.
does. But as far as like it being brought to the physical plane, it's only been here about 10 or 15 years.
Mm.
It's still very new. And the teacher that I learned it from, he channeled it directly from Ascended Masters. And I've worked with these specific Ascended Masters, and they're actually showing me how to adapt it as I teach it to students and clients as well. And it's a very different energy. It helps really connect you back into, especially people who identify with the term, we'll say, star seeds. I'm not, totally in love with that term, again, because our language doesn't translate very well to universal concepts. But
This is what I mean. This is why I'm having to get you a help with the language. It's quite new. I still don't know too much about the star seeds, but I have heard the word Lemurian mentioned in the same discussions as about star seeds. So there must be some connection, right?
oh yes, absolutely. And it's my understanding that Lemurians actually came from a planet that was destroyed, and they came here and essentially rebuilt their entire society until they could get to a point where they could leave the planet again and go find somewhere else. That Earth was basically just a stopover for them.
Right. Okay. Okay. But there's some of their teachings and their abilities have been passed through or channeled through via um, ascended masters, and the ascended masters, are they maybe someone that doesn't exist in a physical body anymore? Is that maybe, or someone sort of died kind of thing, or
Essentially, yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
If you're familiar with the Indian term bodhisattvas, it's basically the same idea. Someone who has transcended the physical. Yeah.
on purpose, like,
On purpose, yeah.
like
Yeah.
Mahavatar Babaji, probably one of the more famous ones from Indian teachings. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly
Okay.
that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Right.
And people
But
think of
Jesus.
figures like Jesus and Buddha.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're considered ascended masters as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, taking you away. So you were explaining how your mentor channeled the Atlantean Reiki from the Ascended Master.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like I was saying, as I'm working with it, those same ascended masters are coming in and showing me how to adapt it for the more modern, as we're stepping more into this, age of Aquarius, they're calling it. It's just essentially new energy technology, and that's all it is. Because Aquarius is very much about technology, and changing that technology and how we use it. And energy healing is, it's not magic. It is a science, and it is very directly related to quantum mechanics, quantum physics, to that idea of quantum entanglement. But actual science hasn't quite caught up yet. And I feel like it will over the next 20 years, because it's not going to have a lot of choice, I don't think. I think there are going to be events that are going to kind of push the world to really see these correlations.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's very much, the Atlantean Reiki is about connecting us back into those lifetimes where we've been, where we've lived on other planets, where we've lived, lives between lives. There's so much more to the human soul than humanity, and I think that's why we have, as a collective, this burning desire to explore beyond, space, and see what's out there. So it's really quite fascinating to me to kind of see all of the different pieces and how they can be put together.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you see as the difference, the obvious differences between the application, let's say the application of the traditional Usiu, I think you said Usiu
So
Reiki, and the Atlantean Reiki?
um, the big difference I find is the Usui Reiki, it works at a distance. It absolutely does. But in my own experience, I found it much prefers to be in person. It prefers to be, up close and personal, and to really be in that person's energy field in a physical way. But with the Atlantean Reiki, it's very meditative. If I do those sessions for my clients, I actually won't do them as a live session. I will do them as like an email session, because it lets me really get really deep into the meditation portion of it, and really connect with their energy. And it does have its own protocol, but it's a little more free, because it allows me to connect in a different way with the person. And it becomes more about helping them reconnect with their soul remembrance of the gifts and the abilities that they've carried with them through other lives. And it's not just about psychic and spiritual abilities either. Maybe somebody was an amazing chef in a past life, and they haven't been able to learn how to cook in this life. We're going to bring that remembrance back so they can, be a better cook, even if it's just for their family. Maybe they were an amazing musician or artist or writer. We want to bring these kinds of skills back into these lives, because, the world is lacking some creativity from a sacred space. And so I think that's a big part of that with the Atlantean Reiki, is bringing those kinds of remembrances back to people in the physical world in a tangible way.
Okay. Right, I see. So what I'm hearing, what I'm sort of taking from this is that the Atlantean Reiki can bring back maybe pieces of the past that you may have forgotten, or so to speak, and allow you to integrate that into your present current sort of life.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And then I throw another monkey wrench in there, and I practice another form called Kundalini Reiki, which works with the
Right.
Kundalini energy.
Yeah.
This one is my absolute favorite. This one, you might not get me to stop talking about this one. In 2021, I was gifted the attunements from another practitioner, and absolutely did not expect how this practice would change my life. Um, you know, sometimes we kind of get stuck in our ego, and I was in that place back there 4 or 5 years ago. I'm a spiritual healer. I'm healed. I don't need any help anymore. Oh boy, was I wrong. Um, and I can laugh about it now, but in the moment you're like, I don't want to do this. This isn't fun. But in the long run, working with Kundalini Reiki has been one of the best things I have ever experienced, because it actually showed me where I had my first Kundalini rising, and didn't even know that's what it was back in, I think it was 2013.
Would
I
you like
had a
to talk
spontaneous.
about that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
cool. Please,
actually,
please, please.
it's actually a really, really, really funny story. So I'm in Canada, and that green herb marijuana is legal here. And so we decided one Friday night we were going to imbibe. And it was actually quite literally in this very room that's now my office. I'm sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden I feel this rush of energy through me, and I feel like I am on fire. And I'm getting these images of historical scenes and these thoughts about things in our lives. And I'm sitting here rocking back and forth, telling my then boyfriend, now husband, I'm on fire. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I am on fire. And I literally had no idea how much time passed. It was just, in that moment, my energy just decided it was time for this to come up. And essentially what happens with that is it's this energy that's coiled at the base of your spine, and it rises up to your third eye, and it essentially helps facilitate awakening. But in the long run, what it helps facilitate is deeper self-awareness. And I had no idea what I was going through at the time. So I sat here, I'm on fire. What do I do? I had no idea. Eventually, my husband helped me get to bed. But when I woke up the next morning, I noticed my perspective on so many things had changed. And I still didn't know what to expect. And it was when I started studying Kundalini Reiki that I realized that that is what had happened to me. And so what happens in these 3 major Kundalini risings that we have little ones all the time. You'll especially find middle-aged women like myself, when we complain about hot flashes, a lot of times what's happening is it is that Kundalini energy trying to rise. And it's getting stuck or something like that's happening. But the 3 major ones, the first one is known as para Kundalini. And this is it's kind of the beginning stages, right? This is where you're going to see somebody who's starting to get interested in spirituality. And a lot of times they will go down the occult route with tarot and crystals and magic books and things like that. And again, there's nothing wrong with this. I think everybody has to kind of come to this in their own way. And you really start to see, oh man, there's way more to life than what I've been taught my whole life. And then as you work through that, the second one will come along, and it's called Chit. Excuse me, I apologize. I just had a little tickle there. Sorry about that.
No,
that was a little unexpected. Okay, let's try that again. And the second one is called Chit Kundalini. And this is where we really step into letting go of limiting self-beliefs. So those things that make us feel like we're less than, the things that make us feel like we're not worthy, the things that hold us back from opening our hearts to love in all forms, whether that's for ourselves or other people in our lives. And it's not necessarily about romantic love. A lot of people get caught up in that notion, thinking that romantic love is the be all and end all. But in reality, it is more that agape, that unconditional universal love that we want to be sharing in the world. And, the relationships always end up playing out how they end up playing out. But the big part of that is this is where you end up going through what they call that dark night of the soul, that space where, you know, everything seems bleak, everything seems like it's really bad for a little while, but you're just going through essentially a spiritual puberty, we call it. Learning the ropes, learning who you are, and learning where you're coming from, as far as, you know, as a soul, and what your authentic soul expression is meant to be. And then what happens as you continue to work through this, whether you're doing energy work, or you're doing yogic practices, or you're doing somatic practices like breath work or vagus nerve work or things like that, your energy will continue to change as you're working through that. And then you come to that third rising, which is called prana kundalini. And this is life force, essentially, right? Prana, we know from yoga, is life force. And this is where you step into just a much deeper self-awareness. And a lot of people call it enlightenment. Don't get me wrong, it's a great goal to have, but at the end of the day, we never stop. We never stop working through the layers of limiting self-beliefs. We never stop working through, the layers of learning how to come back to love and forgiveness in our work. So Kundalini Reiki really did show me. And it's one of those things, like, I use it every single day on myself, on my home, on my family. I've even attuned my husband to Kundalini Reiki so that he can work with it himself. Because, you know, when you're in a partnership, you want, someone who's going to be in a similar energetic frequency to you, so that you can live with them and not have to worry about, cleaning up yourself every single time you encounter them. So, because that's another piece of it, is the energetic hygiene maintenance part of it, right?
Yeah. So when you studied the Kundalini Reiki, that helped you define experiences of the past, I suppose, helped you label stages of an awareness shift and an awareness expansion, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where, with the Kundalini Reiki, that very much differs. It's highly intuitive. It really puts you back in connection to your heart and to source, because it does use that Kundalini energy, but you're also tapping into source, but you're also tapping into the earth, right? Because we want to have these connections coming together within us. And it was really helpful, and just opened up so much for me on the emotional front, on the spiritual front, as far as understanding how to love someone or something, and being able to detach from it, right? Because we have all these, attachments to things in our lives, to people in our lives, and just being able to love someone or something without attachment, and knowing that there is that possibility that it could leave, and that's okay, that we would be okay without it. That was a big thing for me, because I grew up in a house that was, not always a nice place to be. So I had to really learn to overcome a lot of that kind of stuff. And the Kundalini Reiki really, really helped me with a lot of that.
Yeah, nice. So I feel like I got quite a good rundown on I guess three forms of Reiki. I'm going to try and summarize. Well, the Atlantean is great for helping people remember things from their past, maybe even past lives, not necessarily early stages of their life, but previous lives, and bringing
Yeah.
that into fruition to their present. The Kundalini Reiki is go on. Can summarize for me, please, the Kundalini one?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. What I found with the Kundalini Reiki is it's really great for spiritual development. development, in understanding the role that that plays in your life. And but it also does help you overcome, I think, more that it creates the spiritual and emotional fortitude that you need to really step into understanding your past, and sometimes even your past lives, and even some of the ancestral stuff that comes along with that.
Okay. But is it leaning a little towards more spiritual development than the Atlantean one, maybe?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, right. And then the Usu, Us, Usuyu?
Usui.
Usui. The Usui Reiki, the sort of original one to kind of show the first one to show its face, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is, I don't believe we kind of defined what was the main purpose of that. Did we? What would you say that is the specialty for that?
That one tends to be more of the mental aspects and the physical aspects of life.
Okay.
And it tends to be more of like a beginner place to start. Yeah.
Applicable to anyone, even people that, let's say, that are very much grounded in the societal physical world.
Absolutely.
It
Absolutely.
wouldn't it wouldn't lead them to questioning too much of their past experiences or their spiritual existence, so to speak, maybe.
What I feel like with it is it can kind of start, maybe putting cracks in those thoughts.
Yep.
And then a lot of times what I find, especially when people come to me, is they have cracks in those thoughts, right? And when we work with them, it helps them kind of break those open and really begin to question.
Okay.
I kind of feel like, and this is my own personal opinion, that working with someone who has been in like this kind of sphere for a while can help beginners really kind of crack that open. And especially if they work with someone who is, you know, who is confident in what they know, and who is comfortable using the lingo and using the things and explaining it to people. I've come across people who don't explain their work very well, or don't even understand their own work, and that can have its drawbacks. And so that's why I feel like a lot of times people, and especially if they start getting into like meditation groups and groups that practice tarot and things like that, that I feel like those are really great places for beginners to start. And then they can step into things like that Usui Reiki, because it does kind of begin to break the shell, and crack that shell open so they can start looking at life with a different perspective.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Hey, would you mind sharing about what drew you to Reiki? I'm curious because you started to have these kind of awakening or expansion like moments. Did you say 2009
Yeah.
maybe?
Yeah, that's when I really stepped into it.
Yeah.
Um,
And was it then the Reiki came along, or was that before?
so that was when the Reiki came along, was 2009.
But
But
what led
before
you
that,
to it? Yeah.
before that, it really all started when I was about 12 years old. I saw a ghost in my room, and come to find out, it was actually the grandmother of my stepmother. Um, and I never felt scared of her. I never felt anything other than she just wanted me to know she was there. That was it. But as I started telling my family members about it, because, at 12, you don't really think anything of other people and how they're going to respond to something like that. I just told them because I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
And my mother, it actually turns out, was very highly psychic. And so when I was 16, she took me to my first metaphysical shop. And that's when I knew. I didn't know how or when, but I knew I was going to be a part of that world at some point in my life. And then around 2007, so I was in my late 20s, I started kind of noticing, things were wrong in my life, things were not right. Um, and, I went the traditional pharmaceutical route. I was depressed. I had been drinking a lot, almost to the point where I would almost say I was an alcoholic at that point. It was affecting our lives, like my kids, my now ex-husband. And so, of course, the doctor says, here's a pill that should make that better. But what really drew me in was in 2008, I was feeling like I was ready to get off of these antidepressants and try and figure things out for myself. And I went for my first Reiki treatment. And it was the most fascinating thing I had ever experienced in my life. And she knew things that I had never told anyone, talked to me about problems I was having with my mother that I didn't tell anyone about. And after the session, what I found the most fascinating was how I had went through the gamut of emotions. I mean, I was happy, I was elated, I was sad, I was angry, I was everything. And I just thought, I have to learn how to do this. And so that was when I met this tarot reader not long after that. And she introduced me to the spiritualist church where I thought I was going to become the next Teresa Caputo. That did not happen, clearly. And I'm okay with that. But through that Reiki, there was an opportunity to take a Reiki course. And I was like, ooh, I need to learn how to do that. And from there, it just grew and blossomed into its own thing.
Yeah. Cool. And one thing that also intrigues me is when was it now? Almost 2 weeks ago, I was at a holistic healing event, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Reiki practitioners, and a little stall beside a Reiki master, and friendly guy. He was have a little chat in between his clients, but he had a problem with his hands. He said, his hands were burning too much. He said he had too much energy there, but he didn't want to lessen the energy with some of the tools he had in case he couldn't regenerate it, because he had quite a lot of work booked in that day. Do you find there are some consequences, however minor or major? Do you find there are consequences that that affect you
Yes.
from doing your
Yeah.
work?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of times when we see practitioners like that, when they're, feeling like their hands are burning, or they're feeling like there's so much energy flowing through them, a lot of times what that comes down to is actually the nervous system, because that is the electrical conductor in the body. And one of the things that we have to learn to do as energy practitioners is take care of that nervous system. So we need to make sure we're getting enough rest. We need to make sure we're connecting to our body in physical ways. So, whether we're doing, yoga or other exercise or breath work, or in my case, I work with a modality called block therapy that I really like as well, along with breath work. Funny story, I used to hate breath work. I used to think it was the worst thing in the world. And over the last couple of years, I've really pushed myself to practice it. And now I'm totally in love with it. So
Cool. Cool.
it shows you when you need something, and you're resisting it, odds are pretty good you need it. But yeah, the nervous system is really important. And of course, also healing the nervous system, because, if we come from traumatic backgrounds, or if we, even existing in life can put us in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And in order to be effective practitioners, we need to be regulated. We need to be in rest, digest, and connect. And we can, and we can burn out if we don't take the opportunity to take care of it regularly. So, and it also comes down to, you know, paying attention to the foods you're eating, making sure you're getting enough of the right nutrients. Like in the case of the nervous system, you need like magnesium and potassium and things like that. And those are the major things. And then the other piece that I find that goes with that is a lot of times practitioners don't ground themselves. They don't reconnect back into the body afterwards. And that's a really important thing. So, you know, you can do things like touch a tree, put your feet in the dirt. There's energetic ways of grounding, salt baths, like you name it. There's so many different ways to ground. Some people drum, some people have sexual encounters, you know, there's lots of different ways that we can ground back into the body, but it's really important to do those two things when you're an energy practitioner.
Okay, so exploring methods for grounding and also nervous system regulation are vital for any sort of energy worker.
Yes, very much so. Very much.
I wonder, so you speak on the nervous system. It might be tricky to do so, but I wonder if you know, or you can maybe explain what state the healer or the practitioner's nervous system will be in when they are doing the treatment, the energy work.
Right. So I always find it's best to make sure you're in that state we call rest, digest, and connect. So this is when the body is fully relaxed. This is when the mind is fully relaxed. So that's when a lot of times I will do these practices right before I go into things like interviews like this, because even though, we're just having a conversation, energy still moves, because there's always that kind of, give and take with the energy when you're in a conversation. If I'm going into a session, I'm making sure I'm grounding myself. I'm making sure I'm doing. So there's specific practices, and there's actually a specific practitioner that I recommend on YouTube. Her name is Suki Baxter. I joke that I recommend her channel so often I should probably have shares in it. But it doesn't matter, right? Like these types of things are meant to be shared. They're not meant to be hidden behind closed doors, because I think they're tools that everybody can use in the long run. So yeah, when you're getting into a session, and these are things I teach my clients and teach, practitioners who are coming up. When you're getting ready to get into a session, make sure you're grounding yourself beforehand. Make sure you're opening yourself to source, to the earth, and allowing that energy to flow through you, because you are the channel. You are the clear, and you need to be a clear channel. Because it can distort what we're bringing through for the client if we have biases, if we have, unresolved things within ourselves as well. The more I work on me, the more effective I am for my clients. And so you want to be grounding. You want to be making sure you're in that rest, digest, connect, and taking care of. They call it the body, the temple, for a reason. You're housing this amazing soul energy that wants to express through the body. So the more we take care of it, the better we can express that.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. Have you? That brings me to another thought. Have you noticed when there may have been stages where you might have neglected your self-care a touch, or maybe a large amount, but then you still had work to do, you still had clients to work with, and you could tangibly, and they could maybe even pick up on it, that it wasn't quite as effective as usual?
Absolutely. If I neglect my self-care in any way, not only do I find that the sessions are a little more difficult to work through, but I also find that there's less of them. Life flows better when you're in that relaxed, receptive state, especially for feminine energy. But men can benefit from the same practices as well, in being able to allow life to flow a little better. So it's really about like making sure you're getting these practices. A perfect example actually is a couple of weeks ago, You know, we choose in our family, because I work from home, to only have one car. So sometimes scheduling can be an issue. So I had scheduled a massage for myself, because this is part of my self-care routine, is once a month I go for a massage. And my husband had scheduled an oil change for the car. Well, the oil change was a little bit more important in that moment,
Yeah.
because it was overdue, you know, and I don't want to buy a new car yet.
Yeah.
And so I had to reschedule it. And in the moment, I was very upset about it. And I said, no, you know, there has to be a reason. I go to the massage therapist a week later, and she says it worked out because she ended up actually having to take a family member to the hospital. So
Oh,
everything works
yeah.
out exactly how it's meant to. Yeah, and the
Mm.
family member is okay, but it was just one of those things that it just worked out exactly how it was meant to. But I did notice during that week that it was a little more difficult to get through my week, because I knew I really needed that particular form of self-care.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, I like how you go for a massage every month. My first guest that I had on Instagram, Carol, he's a friend actually. He'd be over the moon to hear that, because he's always stressing how important a regular massage is, and he thinks that in England he feels that a lot of people neglect the importance of body work, of
Yeah.
relaxing massage.
Yeah, and I would say that's here too. Um, you know, I built it into my budget as part of. Now, thankfully, we have a benefit system where my husband works, where they pay for part of it. But even when we didn't have access to that, it's part of it. Because it does also help with that nervous system regulation. And he would probably agree with that. It helps you get out of that fight, flight, freeze mode, and be able to. I always find after I come out of my massage, I'm like, I'm hungry. I need food, because it helps my digestion move better immediately.
Yeah, okay, of course. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I see that. Cool. Mm. There was had a train of thought. Where is it floated to now? Oh yeah. So with your clients, without you may have some. I'm sure you have a way of explaining this without expressing too much detail about the client, as much as you feel comfortable. But would you be able to share? Um, Maybe one particular or a couple of powerful experiences you've witnessed or even facilitated through the use of Reiki, any of the styles.
Yeah, actually, it's really funny, because I literally just had a client send me an absolutely amazing review. So I have a 6-week program that I call Spiritual Healing Boot Camp. It's basically 6 sessions where you come and we dive as deep as we can, over 6 sessions. And this client
Okay.
came to me in particular because she was struggling with trusting what she was receiving in her intuition. And she kept saying to we were actually in a class together. It was funny how that kind of happened. And she said, I'm not getting anything. I don't get anything. Um, and then she would proceed to tell us these absolutely beautiful experiences she was having in her meditations and in her journeys. And so we really worked with, and I've watched her. So we worked together just before Christmas and just after Christmas. But over the last month or so, I've watched her like really step up into her abilities and trusting them. And quite literally yesterday, because she's a part of my membership as well, we have weekly calls and things like that in it. And she stepped up and she said, you know, if you had told me a couple of months ago that I was going to, receive these very interesting pieces of information from my soul, I would have laughed at you. And then she proceeded to tell me about another absolutely beautiful experience, where she had revisited some of the Kundalini Reiki attunements and literally saw a golden snake in her visualization, and was just absolutely blown away by the fact that this showed up, because she didn't connect it until much later that it was the snake is the representation of the Kundalini energy.
Mm.
And to be able to make those connections for herself was really big. And she had a few other interesting things where she ran into somebody she'd known years ago. She told me I could share these things, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, yeah.
She ran into somebody she knew years ago, and in the past, she would have tried to fix that. She would have tried to, oh, what can I do to help you? Instead, she said, I sat back and I listened and I observed. And she said, I thought to myself, I'm so grateful I'm not in that place anymore. And that was the extent of her interaction with the person. And so just to watch those huge mindset shifts.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I, I had a young therapist come to me actually last year. And it was quite interesting because we had set it all up. We were ready to get started with her coaching, and her sister passed away. And I watched her, though, in the course of our sessions, go from feeling like she literally couldn't move through life at all anymore, to understanding that life goes on, whether we're here physically or not, to understand that she had the power to be what she was in her sessions with her clients, and just really to help her see that she could draw not only on her current life experience with her clients, but also her past life experiences. So that was a really powerful one when we stepped into that with her, because she thought, how am I going to move on? Like, why did I do this? Why is this happening? To I understand. I even connected with her sister, was able to share messages, and they really helped her in that healing process of understanding how grief works. And it's
Yeah.
actually helped her in her practice to help other grieving people.
No, yeah, it's great. That's really powerful. So she's got something for what? Something that'll last forever, and it's going to be passed on.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm. So also, I wonder if you think there is anybody or any maybe type of person that Reiki isn't for, or could potentially uh, give do more harm than good.
Um, I would say that the only time that something like that would do more harm is if someone just simply isn't open-minded enough to it, or they if they start experiencing things and instead of asking for support, they run away from it and they become afraid. That's when I think that it becomes a little more harmful.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really important as practitioners that we support people when they do come to us. Even if it's, 2-3 months later, they're saying, I'm experiencing this. I'm not always going to be like, well, you have to book a session. I might just in that moment say, here's something you can do to help that, because it's not always about, you know, the money. It's about how can I help this person through what they're going through, because I've been there and it's not always fun.
Yeah, yeah. So there is I guess there's a chance the Reiki could um, s- al- allow a client's mind or emotions to begin to open, but they may not be quite ready to work through that alone. Is that
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. That's why you got to keep a close connection to them,
Exactly.
even yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, 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 that makes sense. It's all. I mean, yeah, in a way, it all sounds to be, I guess we could say, like a syncretic sort of foundation across everything. Rem remembering grounding techniques, nervous system care, um, being having someone to support you through emotional realizations or mental realizations, or both of them. These seem
Yeah,
like they well, with everyone I've spoke to so far, these are core kind of fundamentals to their modalities.
absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. Um, And I think it took a lot of us a long time to really come to those realizations too. Because back in the day it was all about the crown chakra and opening it up and, being spiritually connected, but forgetting that, we're not going to go through this consciousness expansion through the crown alone. We need to master the root physical presence being here. And we also need to master the heart, that unconditional agape love. So it's a combination of working with all of those things, which means, again, working with all of the bodies, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. We're all four of those pillars.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. And I think I'm starting to develop a bit of an understanding now. And I see that could be how Kundalini Reiki can be seen as such a powerful tool during this, because from my understanding that it essentially unifies the different chakras on the body and the nadis of the body. So we're getting coming together of this energy instead of a separation or just a focus on a single point.
That's exactly it. It's exactly it. It helps you come into that balance with all four of the pieces of yourself.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Cool, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I met a yeah, I've met many. I guess you could call them healers or energy workers, or yeah, therapists, so to speak. Yeah, psychotherapists that say this as well. These four pillars: the mind, the emotions, the spirit, and the physical.
Yeah.
And they're all about bringing those into a position where the individual can recognize them. They can observe and they can safely explore and get to know them within themselves, and in turn sort of balance them in the way suited for them.
Yeah. Yeah. That is exactly it.
Yeah.
It is, and it is a balancing act, because, society throws all of these things at us that says, this is not how we want you to be. But at the same time, we're really pushing the boundaries of consciousness to understand that that it's just a better way for us to exist as a species,
Mm.
as a
Yeah.
whole.
Okay. Cool. Oh, nice. Well, thanks. I'm sure and people watching this are going to get a lot from it. Well, if they're at the same sort of understanding that I'm at, where I didn't know too much about Reiki, the origins, and or even the sort of purpose, and this safety around it. So yeah, I think this is a really good foundational conversation for people to get a grasp of what Reiki is and how and why it is useful for people. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Well,
I love talking
yeah,
about what I do. So
yeah. So maybe in the future, once this sinks in and I can, because the way sort of work, this will be floating around my mind for a few days probably, just as it sinks in properly, and then there'll probably be more questions that pop up and say, oh, what about that? I want to dive deeper into that line of thought. So potentially in the future, maybe we could have a conversation and go a bit into more detail and specifics of certain parts of Reiki and energy healing as a whole.
absolutely, I would love that. I would love that.
Mm. Cool. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Well, actually, is there anything you'd like to add? You're welcome to yeah, anything. Maybe there's something you've got coming up. You have a program maybe coming up, or any online sort of offerings that you're
Um,
working with at the moment.
yeah,
Please do.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So as always, I have my ongoing membership where if people would like to come and learn, I teach the Kundalini Reiki and the Atlantean Reiki in that membership. Um, and if they want to find information on that, you can click my bio. There's a campsite link there. They can find all that information. My biggest thing with teaching people these modalities, though, is that I want them to be able to come back into the confidence and the self-love and just the balance in their life with being able to use these modalities on themselves. But beyond that, I do offer individual sessions, private coaching, and I do have a little special going on. So if they want to get in on that, everything's 44% off for the month of love.
No. Okay, cool.
So,
Cool. Nice.
so yeah, they can connect with me through my website if they'd like. They can also, of course, find me here on Instagram if they'd like to send me a message, or also on Facebook and Threads under the same username, Moon Over Pisces.
Cool. Moon Over Pisces. A nice username as well. I like that.
It's about the transformation, right? So
Yeah. I have so I have a Pisces moon, Taurus sun.
I thought you might have some Pisces placements.
Yeah, yeah.
You talk like a Pisces. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay.
I'm,
Cool.
I'm a Pisces everything with a Scorpio rising, so it's lots of fun.
Right, okay, yeah, intriguing. All right, cool. Well, it's earlier in the day for you, I believe, right?
Yeah, I actually have a few things I have going on still today, so I need
Yeah,
to
cool. I'll
step
let you
into that
crack
here.
on.
So
Cool.
wonderful.
All right, well, yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks
You
for coming.
too. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye now.
All right, so that was uh, Lisa, Moon Over Pisces. You'll see, I'm going to save this video anyway. That is still watching, and yeah, it was my third chat. Looking forward to doing some more. I potentially have another body worker. I say body worker, but I think she also works with frequency and sound healing as well. She may be up next, and then maybe by the end of this week or the beginning of next. So tune in next time, and thanks for watching.